This section is specifically for people that do not live within Europe. If you are coming from the United States, if you're coming from Australia, if you're coming from somewhere in Asia, and you do not have an EU passport, then this section is for you. If you live in Europe, you do not need to go through this section. So I'm just being upfront and honest. So let's dig in. There's a lot to cover here. I talk with all kinds of expats all the time that are like, hey, can I just move there and then I'll figure it out once I relocate? The reality is, a tourist visa is 3 months and you're not allowed to work remotely. So you can't sustain an income doing remote work. If you get caught, there's all kinds of liabilities that go along with it. There are all kinds of resources available to you to be able to find out what visas you may be able to get. So, in the instance of Denmark, where I live, you can go to NYI Denmark.dk, new in Denmark, and there are lots of resources for you that you can figure out exactly what types of visas are relevant for you. Know before you go, right? So there are all kinds of options dependent on the country or countries that you're targeting, and there are different visas within each of those countries. So real quick, I'm just going to break this down. Now, bear in mind, this list is up to date as of today. Today is somewhere within March of 2025, but if you check in 6 months, in a year, some of these countries may have different rules and different laws when it comes to migration, potentially even different visas that you could get into. So I've marked it separated by not EU and EU. It is significantly easier to get in and start working in a not EU country. There's less restrictions and liabilities. But if I look down each of these, I can figure out like, oh, okay, there's lots of different visas for Finland versus, I don't know, Kosovo, not so many, but you can literally go through and dig into these. And at the very least, you have the government website linked here that allows you to start doing some real research on your own. This is exponentially more helpful than just going off of hearsay or what people tell you at the time. There are lots of different ways to move abroad. One way is to get a visa within the pay limit scheme like I got. This is a really helpful video that starts to maybe get the wheels turning. So go ahead and watch that video, pause here, and see what you think. Cool. The other way that a lot of people are traveling these days is getting a digital nomad visa. Now, not every country has a digital nomad visa program. Now, if you're working within a country for more than 3 months and you don't want to fly under the radar, you want to do things by the book, and I definitely recommend to do that, then you need to research which programs exist by country so that you can take advantage of this digital nomad visa program. Now, lots of companies are encouraging people to do this because if you are fully remote and a contractor, like many of us tend to be, then there's an opportunity for you to actually work for part of the year in different places as you see fit. So there are different requirements based off of the income, there's different fees to apply. You have obviously different stipulations on taxes and the duration, and ultimately you need to assemble a to-do list once you get started. So I've broken this down super detailed by continent and then individual countries that have a digital nomad visa. This would allow you to potentially live and work in that country for anywhere from 3 months all the way up to indefinitely. And this could be a really interesting way for you to be able to work, travel, and also skip around and see different places. I think it's a super interesting way in the modern era that people are able to work and travel and make a really cool life out of it. So building your list of questions is one of the hardest things that I guess people don't know what they don't know or don't know what to ask. So start to figure out what you don't know. That comes down to visa requirements. There's a lot of financial and relocation logistical stuff that you need to look into. There's long term versus short term, and there's everything else. I've created a list of questions that are categorized by theme, and you have employer and job requirements, you have legal and financial considerations, relocation, and I would say this is more the logistic kind of stuff in daily life, and then long-term and career impact type of stuff. This is super easy for you to build on top of. You can also use ChatGPT, DeepSeek, or whatever your favorite LLM is. every single country will have a different setup because they have different types of visas per country. So bear in mind that what works for one obviously isn't the same for another. It's really helpful to have that, but not necessarily something that you need to immediately use mine as the starting point. If you were interested in moving to Denmark, here's how I went about doing it. So I went to the government website, and again, it's NYI in Denmark. And I started researching the individual visas and seeing which visas I was relevant for and which ones I could apply for. So you have in Denmark, you have the pay limit scheme, which means you have to make above a certain amount. You have positive lists, and there's lots of other options. I had a startup visa for a period of time, I had a sideline visa for a period of time. Again, every country is a little different. I have created a prompt that you could rinse, reuse, and repurpose in order to ask ChatGPT and insert the link of the website, which visa is right for me, and give a bunch of stipulations. You can copy that one right there and use it to your heart's delight. Bear in mind that there is a reason they call it a pay limit scheme, and it's a lower limit that you need to make as an employee of a Danish company. That means the Danish company needs to be based in Denmark and they need to pay into a Danish bank account in order for you to be able to work off of that. Again, every visa is going to be different for every single country, but you need to research this and understand, well, this doesn't maybe work for me, or maybe it does. Just so you know, $71,000 or the equivalent of 514,000 Danish kroner before taxes is above the national average. So if you are in a career field that doesn't pay extremely well, then bear in mind that you may struggle in order to reach the minimum amount so that you are in this particular visa. I hope that makes sense. I don't feel like I did a great job explaining. So, one of the ways that I often try to figure out how much I would need to make in order to be able to survive or have an equivalent lifestyle is to go to Numbeo or Numbero, everybody pronounces it differently, and look at where I'm currently living versus where I would like to live. So this is where I came from, Arlington, Virginia, well over 9 years ago, and Copenhagen. And I can see that it is actually a much more affordable environment here in Denmark based off of a number of different attributes. But if you open this up and you go to these things, it's really interesting to kind of start to explore and see, like, wow, if I was making this amount of money in this country, I would be rich by some standards. It just depends on obviously a number of variables. I often get asked, how hard is it to get a job or a visa within Denmark specifically? The most important thing is obviously that you need to make sure that you are employed through a Danish company. And I've always said that if you have at least two of these things, you're in a pretty good spot. So you have a college degree, you have a master's, you are already living in Europe or planning on going to visit very soon, you have at least 5 years of work experience, you're motivated, and you can handle a lot of rejection. There are lots of other ways to do this, but these are the ways, or at least the attributes, that I always try to encourage people consider this before trying to get that visa. Just so we're on the same page, I think it's really helpful to go into the idea of lots of other people have done this. So, this is a statistic that basically gives you the understanding of how many people have migrated or relocated from the United States to Denmark. And this was within the last quarter. By origin and time when they relocated. So lots of people are potentially relocating at this point. That means I got a shot. So just as much as anybody else, you have the opportunity and the chance to get that next role and therefore that next visa. Lots of people have done it. There are a few activities that you could do. If you're interested in moving to Denmark, great. I have built a brief and I'm not going to demonstrate this one, but I'll give you the high level. We've already gone over this very briefly, but you can basically copy my prompt, throw it into ChatGPT or DeepSeek, and then you can fill in your questions as you go. This is a really easy thing for anybody to do. If you're trying to figure out which country you want to move to, and there are many different options and there's many different lifestyles that you could live, then you need to start figuring out which country you would like to put in your top five, copy the prompt, start adjusting, run the prompt, and start to see the different visas that are available to you.